All right. Republicans in Washington, D.C. are making me crazy. We need new blood in Washington, D.C. They don't even want to vote on this new bill that would make it illegal for non citizens to vote. I'm going to be going over this and other big stories. To help me do that, I have Abe Hamadeh to help me do that. Abe, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Stephen. Good to be with you again.
Yes, good to have you back on the show. Just some background. Abe is running for Congress. He is a Trump-endorsed Republican nominee in Arizona's 8th District. He is a former prosecutor. He also served our country. He's a veteran U.S. Army Reserve intel officer. The first thing I wanted to try to understand is down in Arizona, there are lawsuits against over a dozen counties to clean up voter rolls, make it impossible for illegals and non citizens to vote. I'm reading that there's upwards of 1 million old names in Arizona, dead people, illegals, people that have moved. Why are Democrats fighting so hard to keep these names? And why are Republicans backing them on keeping those on the voter roll? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, Stephen, as some of your viewers and listeners might know, I was running for Attorney General in 2022 and had the closest race in Arizona history that was decided by 280 votes out of 2.5 million. We are still in a lawsuit over that, by the way. It's unbelievable. The legal system here in Arizona is very compromised. And, what I learned from fighting our election in 2022 and looking at 2020 is you're exactly right. The voter rolls are a complete mess. When I was serving overseas in Saudi Arabia with the United States Army, I voted overseas in the 2020 election. And when I got back here in Arizona, I had multiple mail-in ballots at my house that were not in my name. I assumed that they were people who previously lived at my address or something. I don't know. So you're right that there's upwards of hundreds of thousands of possible people who should not be on the voter rolls. And what's going on is that the Democrats, this is how they cheat. They really do. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It's not just the voter rolls. It's not just the illegal immigrants on the rolls. It's not just the machines. It's not just the mail-in ballots. It's a combination of all of the above. And Republicans, I don't know what it is. I think Republicans tend to be very law-abiding citizens. I don't think they like to think that their government has been taken over. And they kind of don't want to acknowledge the dire situation we're in. And we are in dire situation. Arizona is a swing state. And my margin, 280 votes out of 2.5 million, I can tell you that, there's a lot of fraud. But even in my case, we're not even alleging fraud. We're alleging that there's votes that should be counted that were not counted because there's still 9,000 uncounted ballots in the 2 years ago. But, I'm headed to Congress because I know President Trump's going to need backup in Washington, D.C., because I talked to President Trump, and I know election integrity, just like it is to me, is also near and dear to him. Without honest and fair elections, we don't have a country. And this idea that you can't question your election, that you can't question the way the machines are being run, if they're connected to the internet or if the mail-in ballots, where all it requires is a signature that you can scribble on a piece of paper with no ID. I mean, how are we going to get out of this mess? I think the Democrats have understood that they can capture the election system and push out this narrative through their fake news outlets that says our elections are completely bulletproof. And what that does is it invites nefarious actors to go in there to screw up elections, because now the narrative is that all elections are fair and honest and they can't be manipulated. But we've seen what the communist Chinese are infiltrating our government at levels we haven't seen before. You saw in New York, Governor Hochul up there, one of her top aides was a communist Chinese spy. And if they're infiltrating our government at these levels, you can imagine that they're going to try to infiltrate our election system. So this is what concerns me the most, is that Republicans, we all need to be on the same page. Our elections are a mess. Some states are better than others. Believe me, I talk to people all across the country. Some states, 98% of their voters vote in person on election day. And here in Arizona, it's about 85% vote by mail. 85% vote by mail. And I don't think we should sacrifice the integrity of our elections for convenience. I think we now know that there's a huge problem that has turned into election season. Can you believe it, Stephen? There's people already voting for president as we speak right now in some states. It's unbelievable. So, this is why I think when I'm in Congress, I'm going to be an advocate for election integrity with President Trump, hopefully with Carrie Lake as senator as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that there has to be national voter ID. We have to make sure that the voter rolls are cleaned up, that there has to be prosecutions against those who commit election fraud, tough prosecutions. I mean, if you think about it, an election fraud, those who vote illegally, those who vote, who are on the rolls and they're voting in multiple states, that is a direct attack on democracy itself. And this is what the Democrats are so good at. So I hear a lot of talk about illegal immigrants and the voting. But how I see it, because here I'm in a border state, I don't actually think it's the illegal immigrants themselves voting. I think what these nonprofit and what these Democrat groups are doing is that they're registering illegal immigrants to vote so that they can vote for them through their mail-in ballots.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so they need to beef up the population to justify printing more ballots.
That's exactly right. They add them to the voter rolls, and they're trying to. I mean, and what you said earlier, there's lawsuits all in Arizona against all counties here who are not doing what they're tasked. So in Arizona is actually a unique state. We are actually the only state that mandates proof of citizenship in order to vote in state elections. However, what then becomes complicated with the Democrats, I gotta respect the Democrats. Okay, these people are ruthless, they're vicious, and they're in it to win. Republicans, I don't see that same type of fight. But what happened is, so although Arizona state election, so if you're running for governor or supervisor or a state representative, you do have to show proof of citizenship to vote in those elections. However, what Arizona has done, they've bifurcated the election process. So if you don't provide proof of citizenship, which if you don't provide proof of citizenship or they can't verify that you're a citizen, maybe they should not be voting at all. But what Arizona does is that they have a separate ballot that's called a federal only ballot. And what that does is that you could only vote for president, the U.S. Senate, and the U.S. Congress. And if you look at the margin of President Trump's supposed loss here in Arizona in 2020, it was by 10,000 votes. Well, guess how many federal ballots there are in Arizona as we speak right now? It's right under 40,000. So, there's possibly 40,000. There are 40,000 people who have not verified their citizenship status. So what they've been given is a federal only ballot, and that's how they're going to vote. And that could possibly swing the presidency, the Senate elections, and Congress.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. That is really interesting. Okay. Another thing, this is why I want patriots like yourself in Washington, D.C. Right now in Congress, in Washington, D.C., there's a bill called the SAVE Act, which would make it illegal for non-citizens to vote. However, minority Senate leader Mitch McConnell doesn't want to attach it to the spending bill. He says, oh, we can't try to push this through. We don't want election integrity. We just want more money printed for the federal government to spend. And now there's many Republicans in the House that are saying, we're not going to vote for it. And Biden is saying, if it makes it to my desk, I will veto it immediately. Why do so many leaders in Washington, D.C. want illegals or fraudsters voting in our elections?
I think they lack political courage more than anything, Stephen. If you look at the Democrats, every time they want a bill like the infrastructure bill or whatever type of bill, they always pass their agenda. They always put in Green New Deal policies. They always put in, transgender policies. That's what they do. And here we are, where 80% of Americans agree on this. 80% of Americans agree that illegal immigrants should not be on the voting rolls and that they should not have a back door to be allowed on the voting rolls. And yet we can't get consensus on this. This is a bipartisan issue. So I think this is what is so sad about so many Republicans, the whole idea that, a lot of Republicans are controlled opposition, which I tend to agree with. It's just a matter of that they don't realize they're controlled opposition. So they're controlled by the media. They don't like to have bad press about them. They want to get invited to the cocktail parties. So it's sad to see, and they want to be accepted by the elites. And, that's where President Trump and this America First movement represents something totally different, where we are working for the American people day in and day out because we understand that our country is in a crisis. But the SAVE Act should be attached to the continued resolution. I've talked to Speaker Mike Johnson. This is what he told me his intent was to do. And so I do think there are some members in the House who are advocating for this, even some in leadership, actually a lot in leadership. However, there's always, it's amazing to me to see that the Democrats are always, a lot of times are unified. No matter if you're a far leftist like AOC or Ilhan Omar, or even more of a moderate Democrat, they're always unified. And yet here we are, Republicans need to ensure that we pass the SAVE Act, whether it affects this election or not. This is common sense. If we don't take a stand right now, what the hell are we doing in Washington, D.C.? Are we there to serve the bureaucracy and the deep state, or are we there to serve the American people? And I think that's the biggest common denominator that is going to set us apart. It's going to basically allow the American people to understand who is there for what reason and what purpose. But the SAVE Act, absolutely. All this asks is that the illegal immigrants are not on the voter rolls. And I think that's pretty easy sell to the American people, and 80% of them agree with it.
Yeah. Let's watch a video together. CNN has been pretty harsh on Kamala Harris. It shocked me, right? Like, I thought they just focused on constant negative news and Donald Trump, but they're actually doing some journalism over there. Let's watch this together, and we'll comment on it.
Tonight, Kamala Harris releasing details of her policy positions for the first time on her campaign website. A K-file investigation has uncovered, meantime, a 2019 questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, Harris laid out some much more liberal stances, among them on immigration. So in 2019, in what K-file found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE." Well, now, of course, she's touting the Biden administration's executive order to crack down on the border. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. Andrew, that's pretty incredible on its own when you're talking about what you found here on ICE. What else did you find?
Yeah, and this was a questionnaire that she filled out for the ACLU, and this questionnaire is really an interesting snapshot in time of that 2019 Democratic primary. Kamala Harris was trying to get to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was trying to get to the left of Elizabeth Warren, and you really see that in a lot of these answers, and I want to walk our viewers through a little bit of what she said. Let's just take
All right, let's pause it there for a second. So under Kamala Harris, as borders are, they're now believing we're upwards of 15 million illegals have flooded into the country. On the one hand, you have someone running for president, Donald J. Trump, saying we're going to do this massive deportation. We've got to keep America safe. We've got to keep America healthy. If we don't have a border, we don't have a country. You have Kamala Harris saying the border isn't really an issue. The wall is a vanity project for the ego of Donald Trump. Also saying we need to defund ICE. What are your thoughts on her comments?
Well, I'm glad to see CNN actually do some journalism for once, and that was a good clip. And I know it gets even better if we continue watching it. But if you look at exactly what she put on that form, that questionnaire, that she wants to defund ICE. I mean, this is the exact policy positions of Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats and the deep state who are in charge right now. They wanted to open up the floodgates of our southern border, which was secured under President Trump. All they had to do is keep the policies going under President Trump. And instead, they reverted all of it because they wanted to have a 10 to 15 million illegals come into our country. But this is a history of Kamala Harris where you don't quite know where she truly stands on a lot of issues, right? I mean, when she was a prosecutor in San Francisco and the AG of California, at some point she was tough. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, kind of put her through the ringer in the 2020 debate where she said that she was locking up people with marijuana offenses and laughing about it. And now suddenly she's now more of a liberal type of prosecutor. But now here in Arizona, we're getting bombarded with these TV ads, Stephen. And here she's wanting to be tough on crime, taking on the cartels. We all know that this is a lie. So she's a chameleon, comma chameleon. I mean, that's honestly what we should be addressing her as, because truly you don't know where she stands, as she's controlled by whoever is influencing her the most with money and with power. And that means she's a perfect puppet for the deep state, quite frankly. But, in Arizona, the ads also tout her at the border with Trump's border wall right behind her. So, it's so sad to see that the Democrats now know that they can basically lie their way to try to win an election, just lie constantly. CNN, I give them some credit, just a little bit of credit for that clip, because they are and I hope they call her out on a lot more of this too, because defunding ICE, I mean, that means she wants to defund law enforcement, which we know she does. She's been an advocate of the BLM movement, especially during the summer of 2020, when so many of our cities were on fire, when her vice president nominee, Tim Walz, was the governor of Minnesota, which he allowed the cities to burn. And, his wife was even saying that she was, seeing it as a good thing to see them rising up like that. So I think we have to understand what we are fighting. We are fighting a communist takeover that has captured our government, and that they typically have the media apparatus behind them. If you look at ABC, NBC, they've done analysis on positive news coverage of Kamala Harris, it's upwards. Some of them are 100%, but almost all of them are over 90% positive coverage of Kamala, trying to rebrand her as something that she's not. I mean, just 3 months ago, before she was now chosen and selected as the Democrat presidential nominee, nobody in their right mind wanted Kamala. Why? Because they know she's gaffe prone. They know she's not all up there in the head, and they don't think she was competent enough to lead. They were talking about Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer and so many others. So she wasn't even a contender until they forced her on people, because they knew that the money that Biden would raise would be able to be attached to Kamala. So I'm glad to see CNN call her out for her comments and her survey on the ACLU that wanted to defund ICE. And that's truly, I mean, nothing. She's in charge now. So here in Arizona, we understand the illegal immigrants are committing crime. They're doing these nighttime burglaries all over the state, where they're sneaking into people's homes. I had a supporter of mine. She was terrified. This is a 75-year-old woman. She was terrified that there was illegal immigrants burglarizing the neighborhood and in the desert washes. And so it is really, it's troubling. It's truly troubling. And I think this is why President Trump's in a good position to win, because everyday Americans recognize that Democrats lie and that their policies have failed.
Yeah. Over on Twitter, you wrote, they tried to silence him. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to jail him. They tried to kill him. And yet President Donald Trump still stands strong, fighting for America and all of the United States. Now it's our turn to do our part and vote for Trump and spread the word. I believe that Donald Trump has a great chance of winning this, yet the mainstream media continues to push on us that Kamala is in the lead, that Kamala is winning. The polling has been confusing, because many polls show that Kamala is up, many show that Trump is up. The betting markets show that Donald Trump will absolutely win this election, and yet they were saying that she would win the debate. Do you think he actually has a chance of winning this, or is this idea of too big to rig just a talking point?
Well, if you look at my primary that I just won here in Arizona, I think that should give a lot of people some hope. And I say that because I was running up against some very tough opponents who besmirched me, who, defamed me and ran the most despicable campaign against me. And they had 7 million. One of them had $7 million. Another one had $3 million and attack ads and all sorts of ads, against me. And we had about 1.5 million, and we were able to defeat them. So I do have hope, and I do think that the good guys still have a chance. I truly do. And I do believe President Trump's exactly right. We have to make this election too big to rig. What I get concerned about is people say, I think they're trying to black pill people, which means that they just stay home and say everything is rigged. There's no way out of this. Well, clearly Trump did it before in 2016. Yes. Are they more sophisticated? And they're going to try to ensure that doesn't happen again. Obviously, in 2020, they had to have the COVID-19 and the printing of mail-in ballots and sending it all to everybody. But here they don't have that same type of apparatus. And I know here on the ground in Arizona and elsewhere in Pennsylvania, Michigan, there's a ground game that I haven't seen before, where people are registering to vote as Republicans in a great way. And if you look at minority Americans, I mean, blacks in Chicago, Hispanics in New York, everywhere, they're saying the Democrats' policies are failing us. They're importing illegal immigrants into our communities, stealing our resources. They're giving food stamps or being allowed to stay at hotels for free, and they're given debit cards. So I think the Democrats are in deep trouble. That a lot of the groups that they relied on to win are abandoning them. And I think Republicans, I think President Trump has unified the Republican Party. And look, I was at the RFK Jr. rally. I spoke right before RFK Jr. took the stage here in Phoenix, where he endorsed President Trump. You have RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, so many of these, Democrats. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard was literally running against President Trump in 2020, and now has come over to support and endorse President Trump. And RFK Jr., same thing. So I think this is truly a movement that we have not seen in American politics. And I do believe, I'm starting to get the gut feeling that this is 2016 all over again, but we have to be vigilant and we can't take anything for granted, because believe me, I know back with my race in 2022 and Carrie Lake's race for governor in 22 as well, when those machines failed on election day. So this is why we have to vote. President Trump wants us to vote by mail, early, however, whatever you feel comfortable with, but you just have to make sure you go out and vote.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of that. And I'm so excited about the RFK Jr. Tag team. I think Trump, JD Vance, and RFK Jr., I think that these guys could do some really incredible things to make America healthy again and great again. And RFK Jr. is doing such a great job of saying, listen, a vote for Trump is a vote for RFK Jr., because I'm going to play such a pivotal role in the next administration. In fact, according to RFK Jr., he and Trump had a conversation where Trump said he didn't realize how deep the swamp was in DC, and that he needs somebody like RFK Jr. to help him drain the swamp. And, that's humility. That's also just realizing, like, you need the right team. And I feel like this dream team is coming together of incredible people like yourself, Carrie Lake, others that are going to come together and really support this making America great again. Final question here, and then I want to hear about your race against Ruben Gallegos. But VP candidate JD Vance says that he and Trump will do the largest mass deportation in American history. It's going to be an uphill battle, but where they're going to focus first will be removing 1 million illegal criminals. These are the gangs. These are the mobs, the mafia. These are the people that are committing crime, attacking our children, attacking, going and like trying to steal our houses, like anyone that had a criminal history from their native country. What are your thoughts on this Make America Safe Again movement that these men are trying to lay out to the country?
Well, we have to deport the illegals who've come into our country, especially over the last 4 years under this administration, this illegitimate administration. 10 to 15 million people, if we allow them to stay, what that does is invites more people to break the law. So the 1 million number that they want to focus on immediately is very, very doable. I mean, if you look at it, we know where they're staying. We know we have an ability to track them. We've given them cell phones. We've been giving them debit cards. We know exactly what to do. And I've talked to a retired federal immigration judge, and it says it's a lot simpler than people think. Truly is. I mean, right now, these asylum cases that so many of them have is not supposed to go to court until 7 years from now. It's unbelievable. But what they should be doing is they can be doing it a lot quicker at the border, whether to even accept them as asylees and as truly legitimate asylum seekers. And 99% of them are not. Trust me. I mean, I've been to the border. These are people who are just trying to come in because they see an advantage to take of the United States. So JD Vance, President Trump, and the team that they're going to build, I know it's going to be a priority. Border security, election integrity, top two issues of President Trump, also my top two issues. And I truly think it's the top two issues for the American people as well. So I'm optimistic. I can't wait to work with President Trump and Carrie Lake for Senate because I know that together with the strong courage that we need to address these problems, we're going to solve it. I truly believe it.
Yeah. Okay. You are running there. I want to know, where can I send people to learn more about what you're doing, be supportive, At the same time, who are you up against, and why would your policies and ideas benefit the people of Arizona? And then on a national scale, you're part of a big group, but every vote counts in Washington, D.C. How could you benefit the nation?
Absolutely. Well, I don't even like to mention my opponent because nobody even knows who he is. So I just tend to ignore him. He's got no money, no funding. I'm in a pretty good Republican district. However, my job is to defeat Ruben Gallego, who's running for Senate against Kari Lake. And I know we got to run up the score in my district to help out Kari and President Trump as well. Because Ruben Gallego, he's a member of Congress and the most radical member of Congress. He's a communist. I mean, he truly has socialist beliefs. He's voted 100% with Joe Biden. So we got to make sure we get Kari Lake in the Senate alongside me in the House of Representatives. But I think right now Americans are looking at America First fighters. I think they understand that they've been sold a bill of goods that has really been fake. And they recognize that if we continue down this path, all we're going to continue to see is more misery, chaos, and destruction, just like California and so many of these failed states and cities. And that's what they're trying to bring at the national level. And it's very scary. It seems like America is for sale. So now it's time more than ever to elect strong America First politicians who are going to go in Washington, D.C. to fight for the American people, just against the corporate interests, against the media influence, against whoever tries to influence us. We are there to serve the American people. But they can go to my website at abe4az.com, abe4az.com. And I would appreciate all the support because we're going to make sure that we carry President Trump and Kari Lake in my district and get out the vote for them in big numbers.
Awesome. Okay. I love hearing that. Yes, we need more America First fighters. I love that. And you are one of them. I appreciate your service to our country. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you for coming on today. I'll put those direct links down below. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Stephen.